afternoon. At the tone, Pacific Daylight Time will be 5, 4, and 30 seconds.
What? Oh my God, we're having an earthquake. Wait a minute. Hold on. Can you feel that? Yes, I sure can. Okay, this is interesting. There go the lights. Oh.
We are here at the Scotts Valley Library with Chris Crouch. It is the 19th of October, 2019, and we're here to talk about the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Jen.
Can you start by telling me how long you've lived in Santa Cruz?
Well, actually, I lived in Santa Cruz, actually in Corralitos, from 1982 through 1997. And then we had a job transfer up to the Sacramento area. And so my plans are to be moving back here pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me your earthquake story. What were you doing before, during, and after the earthquake?
Oh, before the earthquake, it was really ironic. 2 months before the earthquake, my friend Claire, who just lived up the road, I lived in Corliss, on Eureka Canyon Road, so we always had a lot of weather action, in various seasons. So she came to me and she says, well, I felt there was an earthquake here in Corralitos today, so I took out earthquake insurance because, when we have the big one, she was very intuitive that my house is going to be destroyed. And so let's come up with an earthquake plan. So in 10 minutes, we had a plan. She and her daughters would come live with me. And I said, that's fine. We'll sleep in the field. We got all our gear. We had everything all lined up, water source, all that. So I didn't think anything of it because I was in nursing clinical. I was a student at Cabrillo College Nursing School. And didn't think anything of it. And so on that day, Tuesday, it was very hot. It was in the 90s. And it was a full moon, big full moon. And so what I did is I came home from school and dropped off my 10-year-old son, Brian, off to soccer practice. Came back to the Baptist Junior High and picked up my daughter, Lisa, and something told me to pick up Claire's daughter, Maya. We were all friends. So I brought them home. They were in different parts of the house, and it was a split-level house built into the hill, and I found out later it was built on rock, which really saved us. So I turned on the TV to watch the game, and it started shaking. I jumped up, went under the doorway. That didn't work because it got stronger and stronger, and it was so strong that in loud, it felt like there was a roaring train coming up through the ground, up through the house, and 2 building cranes that destroy buildings with the steel balls smashing the house on the side. And it was so loud I had to scream for the girls because I did not know if they were still where they were. Mm-hmm. And it was just, everything was crashing, breaking, everything was just a mess. So I got them out of the house, ran outside, and so we had, we were on open land in the hill, and my neighbor's 2 children came running out. They were about my girl's age, my son's age, and I said, stay with me. Mm-hmm. And so we jumped in the car because Maya said, we have to turn off the propane tank. I said, so we ran up to the road, ran up to her house, and it fell and split open like a blooming lotus flower. You can just see all the furniture, everything just like that. So we jumped back in the car and I said, let's get my son. So we picked him up and then went back to Corliss Market and the neighborhood there where my other friends and neighbors were. And so one of my daughters was my older daughter was at Aptos High School, but she was in a volleyball tournament with one of my girlfriend's friends' daughters. And so I said, where are they? Oh, they're at Santa Cruz High School playing at the game. And I said, oh, please get them. So she got them back safe and sound. My daughter, Jen, described it as, all the lights went out. Someone ran out of the gym so they could see their way out. When they got out, there was gas mains were on fire, houses, things like that. Mm-hmm. So I was very grateful. We got back, and then my husband at the time was in Watsonville working, and he evacuated his building and so on and so forth. So we got reunited at the house in an hour and a half. Wow. So I was very grateful, and we were not hurt. And we had a house, though there was so much damage. So anyway, so I got the kids, I pulled out whatever food I could, because up there in Corralitos, you do have to prepare for the storms and you have food on hand. And so what I did is I pulled it out and got them taken care of. And I went to all the neighbors nearby and I said, do you want to sleep with us out in the field? So some of them did. So we had about 4 families. We pulled out our camping gear. My neighbors, the children's father came home, pulled out more gear and food, and went back to check on his parents. And I said, no problem, the kids are fine. So, of course, power out, phones were out, even the cell phones were out. So anyway, so we, nighttime came and we had camping stoves going. And so we were fine. And water source was good. So, but it was so weird. There was just such a eerie feeling in the air. We were laying on the ground in our sleeping bags, and you could just, I had a lot of goats and llamas, and they were very upset, so we tried to calm them down. So what was so strange it was a beautiful full moon. It was still warm, and I had my portable radio on, and I heard it say tsunami warning for Capitola Village. So it was very surreal. I said, this is real or is it not real? Right. So the next day, we tried to go in the house and pull out what we could do and start cleaning, take pictures. And so I made 2 calls, one to my insurance agent, and they were going to come out the next day, and then one to my massage therapist. So we agreed to meet, a couple weeks later, and I went to her. It was probably every 3 weeks for probably about 3 months at least. Yeah, because my body I knew it just held it real tight, because when you get into high adrenaline mode and all that, you take care of everything. So, but anyway, everyone responded really great. So we got things cleaned up, and then later I was able to call my contractor friend, and so everybody's chimneys went down. So he was able to about 2 or 3 weeks later, he says, I just got the first permit to rebuild your chimney. So one of 10,000. So we changed a lot of things. We didn't put stone fireplace, up and all that. So we just did the wood and such. So we just kind of took different precautions and routes. And so ironically, going back to that night, my neighbor's cell phone started working. So around 10 o'clock that night, I called my mom and I said, are you okay? Because you're the epicenter. She says, no, honey, you are. I said, you're kidding. Because growing up in the Bay Area, you had earthquake drills. You expected it, and all that. So you kind of got used to it, but not. And it really felt like it was the end of the world. I said, so this is what it's like? So, but it was really incredible. What I find is people all came together. We all felt very comfortable. We knew we were going to be okay. We definitely, you just have that knowing inside. So we just helped each other out. What do you need? And I have this, and they had other things too. So for the following 2 weeks, we had potlucks for friends and families. Just pop in, bring whatever, and it was wonderful to be able to talk. Mm-hmm. And I think because everyone had an opportunity to share their story and their feelings and what did you need, or share a lot of sharing. And I think that's what's powerful in community, and I think that's what comes out in so many disasters, no matter what. Right. But even if there's people who are ill, or a loved one, it felt like a death. There was a loss. There was a real loss, not only individually in our family, but a real loss in the whole community, that like a death, that things were never going to be the same. But yet I think once I recovered, I got to see what wonderful opportunities there could be. And I learned that there's always recovery, some way, somehow in that journey, coming out of something that is so brutal for a lot of people. And so our church, All the Eucharist Church, got together. They reached out and connected with Red Cross. The Red Cross came out. I think when we realized everyone realized that they had thought the San Francisco Bay Area was the epicenter, and naturally so because of the disastrous, it was horrifying, absolutely horrifying. But then when they realized Santa Cruz County was the epicenter, there was more support, which was so sorely needed. And so that really brought it out. So our church connected with other people in Watsonville. Watsonville was a real disaster, very sad. People didn't have houses, or were too terrified to live in the houses, So there were a lot of people that were like in the mobile home parks. I remember one of our church parishioners had said that this particular mobile home park, all mobile homes were thrown off their foundations, tilted, and just real disaster. So he was trying to find homes for a lot of the people, and a lot of them were elderly. So we had Nita, which was great. She was a wonderful elderly woman, and so we took her in she lived with us for about a month. And it was really wonderful, and I asked the parishioner I said, we will take care of her if you work with FEMA and Red Cross and get her mobile home park completely back on its foundation and ready to go so she can move in. So that was a powerful experience. She really connected with us, and as we did with her. And so what we did is we started planning. It was near Halloween. So we started planning for Halloween, and turned out it was her birthday. So we just tried to plan. I think something I learned about disasters is that it's really important, once you kind of recover a little bit, that you start planning for the future. And that really lets one know that life will go on, and it'll get better because you have each other. And so that really helped with a lot of healing in that way. So she was back in her home before Thanksgiving, and she was just really happy. We were happy that we could have her. So we met a lot more people in having the potlucks and everything, and people in Corralitos really band together. I remember the Corralitos Market people there, they had it open, I'm trying to remember, maybe 2 to 3 days to try to have somewhat of an opening so that people can have some food, and they lost a lot, but they still worked hard to do that, So the forestry department was great, CAL FIRE, they're always there, which is wonderful. We can't do it without them. And then after all the schools were closed, including Cabrillo College, so it just gave everyone opportunity to try to catch their breath and try to get somewhat of a new routine going. So what I did after a couple of weeks, I think I had a day off, I took my camera and I went through the whole county, and I just shot photos. Unfortunately, with those photos, they've been lost, but I still remember everything. So I went down through Watsonville, and I really felt for all the families that were in Ramsey Park, because the tent city was there for a year. And they were so terrified, just very difficult. So there was a lot of help for them. And then taking photos and seeing Forest Department Store, the stores where the woman, there were other people that were hurt or died. And so it was just kind of going through the grieving, mourning, and acknowledging and validating that. And so I went, one of the places I went to is I had a photograph of my grandparents lived in 1915. My grandparents both grew up there. And so I found a family photo, and I said, I have to find this house. So I found the house on Marchand Street. So they were built in the early 1900s, simple wooden homes. And so what I found was, I went there and I was really surprised. The earthquake caused all of the houses to shift off their foundation, and they were leaning against each other. So I took photos of that, and so it was very powerful. So then I went north to downtown Garden Mall, Santa Cruz, and that was deeply tragic. It was so hard, and people working hard. And again, just to allow to feel what it felt like, the emotions, and to really embrace it, allow it to, it's kind of like a wave, allow it to wash over oneself, and then it goes away. and then, you're okay. What I admire a lot is how people really worked hard together. There were so many different people over the many years to try to plan how are we going to recover. And it took about 10 years or so, but that was okay because I realized it just turned out so beautiful. There was so much hard work. I cannot imagine the hours and hours and discussions and the planning and the trial and the error, but it turned out so beautiful. So I remember downtown Santa Cruz, the time I was a child, because we would spend vacations coming from Oakland at the time, up to the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I just loved it. And I know my mom and dad loved it because they went there when they were children. So it was just really hard to see it being destroyed, but yet there were a lot of places that were still standing, and they were improved, and so that they can last for many, many years, and newness. I find in change, it's been a learning experience for me, that change is good, and to see the positive, acknowledge the hard part, but to see the positives is so important. So, and I know there's more, and I remember taking a photo of St. Patrick's Church, where my grandparents were married many years ago, and to see the damage, and it was just hard. But then to see how things have improved, people coming together, I think it really united so many people. I think I was having been, going into high adrenaline mode, and everyone did great. It really flowed. I'm really glad our earthquake plan worked. I was very grateful. It flowed, and we just went with it. Yeah. That's what you do and all. So I found, though, of course, it was just like, like a PTSD for so many people, including myself. Anytime, there was I lost count of the aftershocks, and I was just wound up. Really, it was hard to relax because one never knew when there was going to be an aftershock, didn't know how strong it was going to be, and just feeling it, just kind of like going to sleep, but having your eyes and ears open to that, and just say you'll get through that. So there were so many, but I knew, I started going to the massage therapy, and I'm sure people found many different therapies to do that, and it really worked. It really helped. I think a lot of talking and sharing and helping, thinking of other people really helps a person to move through that a lot. So I immediately kind of changed plans as far as I had like a basement root cellar under the house, and that. So I changed and moved all the camping gear from being under the house into storage containers, plastic containers you get at the hardware store. And I moved them outside to a small shed. So if there was another time or any other type of disaster, we just could go outside where it was safe to do so and not have it under the house. So the other thing that I found is I was trying to share with all of our friends and family in the Bay Area that they must prepare. And I shared it over and over again. And it really took me a while to realize that I can't expect other people to get it if they have not experienced what I've experienced, but just hoping that they would make the time, to prepare. So I had to let that go and just take care of myself and support those around me. The other thing I did is I created an emergency kit for the car and or my truck, both of them, and it was really important because one never knows where you're going to be for, earthquake or a storm, flood, but even a personal disaster emergency, stuck on a road, flat tire. So I actually had that probably, for the next 10 years, and I'm actually going to do it again. It's time to pack that in my car because I think it's peace of mind, and I think to try to be prepared is empowering. And it sets a good example for others to say, that's a good idea to do so. Other things, and I know I have done that. Like I say, I've moved up to the Sacramento area later, 1997, and being a nurse in the hospitals, being aware of external disasters and such, I still kept prepared at home. What I did even more so when I was in Corralitos, but then also continue today, always have a great food supply that, like I have a propane barbecue with a stovetop. So I still, to this day, I still have the gear and I know where to get it. So in any kind of a emergency, I'm fine. And even for health disasters, so, because one never knows when you're going to use it. So, yeah. So I think that's all I can think of. I'm sure there's more that will come to my mind.
Of course. Did you keep in touch with the woman who lived with you for that brief period of time?
I did, and it was really wonderful. And then I think it was probably about 2 years. Let's see, that was in 98. It was probably about 3 years later she passed away. But we definitely stayed in touch. It was really special.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
What's it like to reflect 30 years later?
It's interesting because I think I reflect when there's a disaster anywhere, and that's what I find is really interesting. How an event so pivotal and that has changed my life, I still can remember every detail like it was yesterday. So I find that fascinating to me. For me to be here at this time, visiting my children, it's really a celebratory, it's cathartic to be part of the same community. I appreciate the whole community and everyone involved and everyone involved in City Council here in Santa Cruz, acknowledging and really celebrating the anniversary, because it's part of our tapestry of our lives, and it's all woven. We're all woven together. There is a bond that still unites everybody. Yeah, everyone. I remember. Just the other day on Saturday, I went on the earthquake history tour. And there were so many people, and I was listening to the people chatting in the crowd, and there was just such a bond because most everybody there was involved, and still remember. And I think it's kept me aware of how important it is to try to be prepared best in our lives, not only for disasters, but for anything in our lives. It's very empowering and helps us in so many instances. But there's still that strong bond with everybody here. And that's very, very reaffirming. Yeah. It says the power of the people here, and that it's home. It's still home. So I'm really looking forward to. I can now move the process and move back here because there's so much heart and soul here. The energy is incredible, and what everyone does makes a difference. It does make a difference. So.
You mentioned creating a cookbook of people in the neighborhood. Did you talk about that briefly?
Yes. In Corralitos, the people in Corralitos, they really do come together. They share so much. And so one of the ways, it was actually turned out to be like a fundraiser. I forgot for what source, but there was I forget who started it. There was a group of people who decided that they wanted to have a Corralitos earthquake cookbook. So they put the word out for people to submit their favorite recipes, and it was incredible response. It's quite a thick cookbook, and so I believe that was published sometime in 1990. And so I'm trying to get a hold of another copy so that the Santa Cruz Public Library can have it in its archives for that. And then another small fundraiser was someone had a business where they created bumper stickers that we put on all of our cars, and it stated "Shift Happens," and so it kind of helped bring some lightheartedness to it, though. But I think just people continue to bond together. It's very, very, very special, you know, so yeah, it was wonderful.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
I've been trying to think about that, but no, I can't. I think I covered everything that I can remember, you know. So I think this has just been absolutely wonderful. I will say, there's such power in sharing story. I think people can relate, and I think that's something as a human that we value. And to have these oral histories handed down from generation to generation is equally important. And we've been trying to do, my aunt started it, doing the family research. And then some of us cousins have continued that. And we're finding stories. And I find it just, it's very fulfilling. It unites everybody together. And other people can relate to everyone's story in some way. So I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.